Thank you very much, Elaine. It's a great pleasure to be here, in particular to share this podium with three very distinguished panelists. Given the time constraint, I think that I'll just move forward. I would like to first take a few minutes to introduce the panelists. The first is James Bulger, chairman of the Thornton Group. Ms. Bulger is co-founder and chairman of Thornton Group, LLC. A serial entrepreneur, Ms. Bulger has formed 3 companies, all with a focus on business development and project execution. Ms. Bulger's first company employed 50 people and worked exclusively with major utilities in the New England area, doing contracting work and project execution. Ms. Bulger then formed his second company in 2000, Thornton Group, LLC, to focus on business development, and actually has done quite a bit of work in infrastructure development in China. Please join me to welcome James Bulger.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, of course. It's a very distinguished panel, and the Sloan School is, I'm a native Bostonian, so I'm familiar with MIT, of course, and its great reputation. And whenever I travel in China or anywhere, India, or anywhere in the world that I travel, and I say I'm from Boston, everyone knows us because of MIT and not that other school in Cambridge. I did not prepare a slide presentation because I don't want to give too much of a pitch on my firm. I was asked to discuss a little bit about opportunities and challenges in doing business in Asia, and I could talk for 3 days about that, the challenges in particular. But just a little background, I began developing power plants, mainly gas-fired power plants, LNG terminal down on the south coast of the east coast of Maryland, and that was back in late 1990s. And when I was involved in infrastructure, I was asked by some folks at Lehman Brothers, probably not a name to be mentioned here either, but to put together a consortium to look at developing a project in Beijing, and that was back in 2005. And it was a subway line, the number 9 line project in Beijing was, the metro system in Beijing was accepting some qualifications packages, so you could get pre-qualified on that. So I put together a pretty good group. We had Parsons Brinkerhoff, we had Bombardier for the rolling stock, ACI here in Boston, a Boston firm, and we wound up getting shortlisted on the project. But the project, the reason I mention it is it brought me to China for the first time, and that was in 2005. And it was on that trip that I realized how political Beijing is. It's more political than Boston, which is not easy. And it brought me into the flavor of the city, and I noticed that it was booming, and it looked like a place where I should be sort of focusing some effort. And I had to go out and find a way to stay in the market there and find some jobs in infrastructure. Of course, a lot of it is government managed and regulated, and it takes a little bit of effort in a country where I don't speak any Chinese, of course, to find relevant projects that we could bid on. So I partnered with a fellow, he's still my partner, very nice Chinese fellow, Michael Lin. He went to Yale School of Management. He was introduced to me by some guys in Washington that I knew. And we went after, pursued a number of infrastructure projects in Inner Mongolia. We went and did some toll roads up there in the coal mining region. And it's not very cold out here compared to how it can be in Inner Mongolia in the winter. But one challenge in China that struck me right away was we needed to have some relationships with the government because, of course, the government is the same as a government anywhere. It manages much of the infrastructure process. And one of the ways that I overcame the challenge of trying to meet some of the large SOEs and some of the government leaders in Beijing was I put together a trip for the State Legislative Leaders Foundation, which is a group of the leaders in the 50 states state legislatures, so all the speakers of the House and all of the Senate presidents in the 50 states in the U.S. And we brought them to China in 2009, and there was, we had 30 states represented with 50 leaders, and it was the largest gathering of elected officials to ever travel from America at once to visit Beijing. And the Beijing Foreign Affairs Department was a sponsor with us, China Life, China State Construction, and Beijing University hosted us. And Thornton, my firm, actually was the main sponsor in getting everybody from here to there. It was a very good session. We weren't there to discuss business, but more to discuss trade issues and you know, environmental issues. We had a whole raft of discussions around those over 3 days. And it allowed me to meet and to sort of get the name out there, which, which is important when I'm doing business in a foreign country. You know, I have since gone on to do a lot of work in that region. I also do work in, I have taken Chinese power companies down to India to develop power plants in India. We recently just sold a mine that's located in the Manaus region of Brazil to a Australian. We sold it for an Australian owner to a Chinese publicly traded entity. So it's, there's a lot of challenges that come with traveling back and forth. I have more frequent flyer miles than an astronaut. I have to go there quite a bit. But I don't know that I should get too into the particulars of the challenges. I could scare somebody. Overall, we do believe that Asia is the place to do business, of course, China, and China being one of the main spots. It continues to grow. I think it will still continue to grow at a very good clip. I work with a lot of private equity firms. We look at the growth in China in we see now that public spending, you know, consumption of consumer goods, trying to get the Chinese to consume a little bit more is good for some investments. We're involved in medical device equipment, infrastructure, and mining. Those are our three particular focuses, but we are looking at consumer goods. And I believe that it would help the rest of the world if China can sort of step into the model of the U.S., move away from its savings and more into spending. I know that the exports have slowed slightly in China, and I know that when I traveled with the legislative leaders, I had them in Taipei just a few months ago, every government faces the same problems in stimulating growth. Europe is having a dastardly time at the moment trying to stimulate growth, and I don't envy them. We'll hear a little bit later from Ms. Wang, who is with the China Development Bank and would have more insight into economic policy and growth. But we're bullish on China at Thornton, very bullish, and I think that we're bullish on taking Chinese companies outbound to the U.S. Now, on Monday next week, I actually have 70 Chinese firms joining me in New York. We're hosting a one-day seminar for the Chinese Commerce Ministry, China Council for the Promotion of International Trade. And they're all there to discuss M&A activities, future IPOs on the New York exchanges, and also investor relations. Some of them are currently trading publicly in the U.S. So my business handles inbound American businesses moving into China and Chinese firms coming out. Right now, I believe that we will see more Chinese businesses coming outbound, and it's being encouraged by the Chinese government. And it's also being encouraged here. You know, I know it's a presidential election season, and we'll see some attacks on the Chinese currency fluctuations, but that's just political rhetoric during a season here of intense combat, mainly between Republicans. And I don't think the Chinese get too flustered by that. We will see a lot of activity coming outbound. I'm not an economist. I'm a businessman, and I am obviously in the business of conducting business. But I would be happy to answer specific questions rather than get into my specificity at the end of this gathering. So I'll take my seat, and we'll hear from others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. I think that I should add that actually the structure of this panel is that we will have each of the panelists talk a little bit about the specific areas actually they've been working with, and you know, share with us some general insights regarding the topic of this panel. And then we're going to have part of the time to discuss various issues broadly concerning investing in China. So now let's actually move on to our second panelist, and Albert Ting, Chairman of CX Technology. Mr. Ting is the Chairman of CX Technology Company of Taiwan, and has been actively involved in infrastructure investments in Vietnam for the past 20 years. His other positions include Chair of Phu Hong Securities of Vietnam and Director of Phu Hong Assurance Corporation of Vietnam. Mr. Ting is a graduate of Harvard and also MIT Sloan School of Management. Mr. Ting is an Eisenhower Fellow of the U.S. and an Honorable Fellow of the Chinese Military Academy in the past. Mr. Ting served as a Vice President of Morgan Stanley London and was a Director of First Commercial Bank and Mega Financial Holdings as a representative of the Ministry of Finance of Taiwan. And I guess we want to ask Albert to say a little bit about his rich experience in Vietnam. And I think that, you know, nowadays when people talk about Asia, it's always mostly China and India. But don't forget that actually, if you look at China, Asia in particular, geographically, there's a huge area in addition to these two countries. So I think it's great that Albert would talk